everyone. Welcome to Tooth and Claw Podcast. We have our wildlife biologist, bear expert, Wes Larson.
Hello.
He's just sitting there.
Just sitting here in my studio.
And then we got Mike Smith, co-host.
Co-host extraordinaire.
Thank you.
Co-host.
Thanks for having me.
He's just sitting there. And then I'm Jeff Larson, Wes's little brother. I'm just sitting here. And we are Tooth and Claw Podcast.
Just sitting here. That should be our tagline. Just sitting here.
Just sit here.
Yeah, talking sometimes.
Less a tagline than like a goal for me.
Something funny that happened to me this morning. This happened more times than I think happens to most people. I was just like sitting, putting some final touches on this episode, and I hear Jessie kind of scream, and I was like, "What's up?" And she says, "Oh, a flea just fell out of my head." And that's not uncommon at my house. And it's not that we live in like destitution or whatever the word is, but it's just animals get fleas.
So it's not uncommon that a flea will fall off of Jessie's head.
She just like all of a sudden one just like fell onto her notebook. Not just Jessie. I've had my fair share of fleas too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
But it always is kind of discouraging. It's like, oh shit, now I gotta go comb through my hair and look for fleas again.
What's so bad about fleas? Is it
Gross.
just like the gross part of it?
They bite and it's really itchy. They drink a little bit of your blood and they're just not, and they suck for animals too. They're really hard to get rid of once you've got them. So we got fleas.
You should gather them all up and sell them in a little flea market. I think that's what those are, right?
Go do a flea
Where you sell your
circus.
fleas.
Yeah, can't they like do
A flea
tricks?
trapeze. Yeah, just talk to Dr. Hammond or Richard Hammond. Was that his
Doesn't
name?
sound-
Richard? No, Richard Attenborough. What was his first name?
Doctor.
Yeah, his were fake.
It doesn't sound that hard to get them out if they just fell out.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
That one's got butterfingers.
Yeah, they just lay lots of little eggs and stuff. They're annoying. That's farm life, I guess.
Ooh,
Sometimes
you could use
get
those
fleas.
eggs too, just like you use your chicken eggs.
Yeah, cook up flea eggs in the morning.
Yeah, sell them.
How do you like your flea eggs? Over easy.
I like big ones.
Well, shut up, you guys.
All right.
Will you guys shut up for once?
Thought you'd never ask.
We've got a long story today. So would you just shut up, Jeff? You especially. All right. Today's story is one that's been on my list for a long time. It's one that I've been thinking about since I first heard about it. And it's very different from our typical stories in that the animal plays a very small part in it, but it's a very important role. And the rest of the story is really crazy. Anyways, since I first heard about this story, I've been thinking about it. It's got a real true crime angle to it. It's about a cult, which I think people are very interested in cults. And there is a wildlife angle to it too. So we're going to get into it. You guys ready?
Let's go.
My main sources were an article in LA Magazine that was written by Hillel Aaron, an Oxygen article by Ted Quarterman, Oxygen True Crime, and the HBO series The Synanon Fix, Did the Cure Become the Cult? There was also a lot of other articles and YouTube videos that I watched, but those three were my main sources for this story.
What's Synanon? I'm not familiar with that one.
We're going to get into
okay.
it.
Sounds
All right.
a little like QAnon. Now I'm excited.
It's similar. Yeah. All right. Paul Morantz was stressed out, to say the least. Every shadow in his house was hiding an assassin. Every footstep outside might be the last noise he would ever hear. And there was a good reason for his paranoia. Morantz was a lawyer that had made himself an enemy to one of the most successful and one of the most dangerous cults in American history.
Oh, wow.
He knew that they wanted him dead, and recently he had bought a shotgun. He had been making a habit out of checking his car for car bombs before starting it up, and he had told all his neighbors in Pacific Palisades, California, to be on the lookout for anyone suspicious.
That's not a bad habit to be in. I should start incorporating that into
Just checking for car bombs.
just in case.
Yeah.
You can't ever be sure.
But on the evening of October 11th, 1977, Morantz had decided to give himself a night off from worrying. The Dodgers were in Game 1 of the World Series. All he wanted to do was relax and
I
watch
hate
the
those
game
guys.
at home. Yeah, I don't like
The
them
Colt
either. They're
probably
playing
knows,
the Yankees,
though.
too.
He's like,
Jeez.
during the Dodgers game, that's
They
when
might
you
have.
get 'em.
What he didn't know is that cult members had visited his house earlier that day, and their plot to end his life was already in motion. A living, breathing, slithering assassin had been left at Morantz's house. one that had perfected its lethality over millions of years and was waiting for him silently in his mailbox.
Oh, man.
All right.
A leopard.
Slithering in his mailbox.
You don't think they could slither?
Yeah, sure.
There's only really one. Well, I guess, do worms slither? Because it's got to be a snake, right?
Yeah.
Centipede.
It would be very
Centipede.
surprising to open your mailbox and have a leopard jump out. That would be... All right.
Like, what's
We're
it
gonna-
doing slithering? That's not how they move. That would be surprising.
We're going to hop in our time machine. We're going to head back to March 22nd, 1913 in Toledo, Ohio. We're in the hospital where baby Charles Diedrich is just starting to crown out of his mom's vagina as she screams through the pain of the contractions.
You don't have to put it that way.
All right. Maybe we went back a little too far. Let's skip ahead 4 years.
Yeah.
That's when they should have got him.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Instead of baby Hitler. Yeah, that's a good point.
I-
We could have done it, but we're skipping ahead 4 years.
Do you have to just choose one baby?
you got timer one, baby.
You get access to a time machine and they're like, okay, you get to kill one baby.
Do you think baby Hitler's parents let him get into because when you're little, your parents get you doing finger painting. Do you think his
Yeah.
finger painting sucked too?
Yeah. And they were
Was it-
parents.
no,
said,
he sold
art's
art,
not
right?
in your future. Yeah, but it was boring. It was just like realism and not that good. Anyway. Okay.
Everyone's a critic.
Yeah. Let's leave our baby Hitler talk. And we're skipping ahead 4 years. So in 1917, Chuck Diedrich is now 4 years old, and his alcoholic father has just died in a car accident. Which, in 1917, you really have to try to die in a car accident, I feel like. Cars probably only went 15 miles per hour back then. His mom turns to religion to try and help raise her young son, and he's brought up a devout Roman Catholic. But at age 14, he reads H.G. Wells' History of the World, and it immediately turns him into an atheist. And he also starts drinking. Alcoholism would prove to be a lifelong battle for him. He was a college dropout. He couldn't hold a job. At age 29, meningitis would claim part of the bone on the left side of his face. And by age 40, he'd be on his way to his second divorce, both of them being caused by his alcoholism.
Wow.
But it was that year when he was turning 40 that he would attend his first AA meeting, and he was an instant celebrity at these meetings. And that was because he had a knack for storytelling and his ability to go on these long, interesting monologues at the podium. So he'd go to these meetings, he would start talking, everyone would be enthralled, and he would even go from one AA chapter meeting to another. He would skip around, kind of like the guy in Fight Club.
Yeah, Fight Club, yeah.
His love for being the center of attention kept him going back to these meetings, even though he didn't believe in the higher power message of AA. In 1957, he had been sober for 1 year, and he enrolled in a study at UCLA that was looking at LSD as a cure for alcoholism. So that always goes really well, right? We've learned that in history that these guys that they tested LSD on always ended up being super normal afterward.
Yeah. The old MK
Ted
Ultra.
Kaczynski, MK Ultra, yeah. Taking LSD in the study changed his life. It turned him into a new person, one that was full of confidence, so much so that he viewed himself as a type of god. He credits it with being the most important single experience of his life. Now, not long after this LSD experience, he stopped going to AA meetings, but he'd become so popular at these meetings that some of the other members of AA would show up at his house to catch up and talk with him. And Diedrich was also really into philosophy and psychology, and these meetings would turn into kind of sermons from him, where he would preach to these AA participants about the philosophy that he'd been reading, about his experiences, and they would have these really intense group therapy sessions together. Over time, drug addicts started coming to these therapy sessions as well, mostly heroin addicts, and Diedrich really liked the sessions with these addicts because it could be a lot harder on them. He basically viewed them as if they were children, and he would talk to them as if he were their dad. And it was during that time that one of the participants in these sermons mixed up the words symposium, anonymous, and maybe something else, and this term Synanon was born. So this organization, this kind of nascent group, was starting to be called Synanon. It's just kind of a weird amalgamation of a few different words.
What time are we around again?
This is in the late 50s.
Late 50s. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
So word of these meetings starts growing, and more people start showing up. And Chuck Diedrich moves the group to San Diego. He gets a storefront, and quickly they become too big for the storefront, and people kind of get word of what's going on and they push him out. So he ends up renting an abandoned military building on the beach at Santa Monica. And during those early years, he established Synanon as a nonprofit, but still got complaints about him treating people without a license or a permit. He even spends some time in jail because keeps kind of treating these addicts, saying that he has a treatment for them, even though he's not licensed at all to do that.
What was he doing that was illegal? Do you know?
You have to be like registered as a treatment center to do that sort of thing.
Okay.
And
To talk to him?
Yeah.
No, but he was like, we'll get into that. But he essentially was running this
He
like
was
a
marketing
business.
himself
Okay,
as like,
sure.
Yeah.
come to me,
Yeah,
I'm God.
yeah, exactly. And it gets pretty crazy. So we'll get into it. It keeps growing, and it's actually kind of revolutionary at the beginning, especially because up until that time, drug addicts were typically just thrown in prison or a mental institution, and they never really got better. But Synanon was actually one of the first rehab centers that focused on treating the psychology of drug addiction, and it was actually working pretty well. And the core tactic that they used was something called the game. So the Synanon game is like their main tactic.
I saw that
And-
movie.
Yeah, it's not the movie, but that is a great
It's
movie.
bad.
This was created by Diedrich, and the game was essentially getting a bunch of addicts together in a circle, and then they would vocally call each other out on their dishonesties, their hypocrisies, and their secrets. Basically, they could air out any bad feelings for each other in the most upfront and heavy-handed ways possible, and it would devolve into these huge shouting matches full of verbal abuse that were often followed by a large emotional release. So it's just like brutal honesty and verbal abuse. They could like say anything they wanted. And Jeff, I feel like you'd like playing the game
Put it all on the
to each
table.
other. Yeah. And Jeff, you're a very honest person. I don't know. I think they take it at way too far. But the crazy
Yeah.
thing,
No, I have that where I don't know.
you say what's on your chest.
Yeah. Well, I mean, should we just do it right now?
Start yelling.
Nope.
Wes,
I would not like the game.
You've really lately. No, I'm just kidding. You've been talking way too much about bears on the podcast.
I'll shut up. I'll stop talking about bears. That's my
All
problem
right.
is I would just immediately fold. I'd be like, you're right. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Okay. The crazy thing about this is it actually kind of worked. There were a lot of people
Oh,
from
you would be like, no, you do that.
I'm not getting into this. There are a lot of people from the early days of Synanon that credit the organization with curing their addiction and saving their lives. One of those people was Betty Coleman. Betty was a black woman who had been both a heroin addict and a sex worker, but found herself drawn to Synanon. At the meeting, she was impressed by the feeling of racial equality, and the game sessions helped her to feel activated and ready to kick her habits. She spent more and more time at the centers, and a romantic relationship developed between her and Chuck Diedrich, and they ended up getting married. I will just say, like a quick aside, Synanon was really good with like diversity and racial equality. Everyone was welcomed equally. There wasn't any kind of preconceptions about race or background or anything. So I will.
Yeah,
that
I
was,
like
a positive thing. Synanon.
Cinnabon.
Yeah. So far it sounds great.
This episode is brought to you by Miracle Made. The weather is heating up, and your nighttime bedroom temperature has a huge impact on your sleep quality. If you wake up too hot or too cold, I highly recommend you check out Miracle Made's bed sheets. Miracle Made sheets are inspired by NASA and use silver-infused fabrics that are temperature regulating so you can sleep at the perfect temperature all night long. Like that one song,
Which one?
All Night Long. It's featured in Miami Vice episode 1, season 1.
They're talking about sleeping.
Yeah, in Miracle Made bed sheets. They should be. So, like I said, they use silver-infused fabrics inspired by NASA, and they're thermoregulating and designed to keep you at the perfect temperature all night long. Also, they're self-cleaning. I don't know how this works. They haven't called me up and explained it to me, but they don't need to because I can feel it. Every morning I wake up, I'm feeling clean, feeling fresh, and I don't smell as bad as I used to. Oh, man. Upgrade your sleep as the weather heats up. Go to trymiracle.com/tooth to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo TOOTH at checkout, you'll get a free 3-piece towel set and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee, so if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a free refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/tooth and use the code TOOTH to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/tooth to treat yourself. Thank you, Miracle Made.
So Chuck and Betty had just gotten married. Synanon starts getting kind of famous around this time. Actors, authors, politicians, musicians, all sorts of famous people were openly touting the organization and their success in helping people kick addiction and creating a really fun community. That's the other thing that I can't really overstate, is that the thing that was really making people stick in Synanon was that they were surrounded by like-minded people. They would have really fun parties. It just seemed like a really interesting community. And if you know anything about the early 60s, especially pretty much all the 60s, community was something that had started to become really important to people that kind of saw themselves as counterculture. So that's kind of what's going on here. In the late 60s.
It's really important for kicking like a drug addiction too.
Totally.
Like, especially something like as hard as heroin. You need an alternative that is enjoyable. You know, you need something else to do that can like take up time. So, yeah.
And they would
at your friends.
They would
about
pretty
what
much
you don't like about them. That sounds like a great way to kick a habit.
They would live at these centers.
Yep.
Yeah. It's not like they were just like going to it for a few hours a day. They would live at the houses. They were like fully integrated into Synanon society. Jeff, you're fully integrated into Cinnabon society.
I can't kick it.
You can't kick it.
Whatever, dude. I bought Cinnabon in, where were we? Ecuador?
Keto.
You wouldn't even eat any. That's
Wasn't the
crazy.
same.
You got so mad at me for eating your food. I'm never going to ask to eat your food again.
All right.
All right. In the late 60s, there were well over 1,000 members in Synanon. They were receiving millions of dollars in donations each year. They owned over $7 million in real estate. And Chuck Diedrich had created a whole marketing arm of the organization. They would sell Synanon branded merch to different businesses. They ran some gas stations. They were starting to make a lot of money, and Diedrich was feeling more and more powerful. It was around this time that
gas stations.
Yeah, they had like gas stations.
I guess you have like the employees. You might as well start looking at things they can do.
Yeah, he was a bit of an entrepreneur, and he was always kind of thinking of new ways to make money, which is a common thing for cult leaders. It was around this time that newcomers, both male and female, were starting to shave their heads when they entered the organization. It was kind of like a punishment and a rite of passage all rolled into one. And there was also a lot of people who would wear overalls almost every day. And that's because that's what Diedrich wore. And he was kind of both a father figure and a religious leader to these people by this point. So when you see photos of Synanon from this time, almost everyone has a shaved head. And it's pretty interesting. They're starting to look much more culty by now. By this point, most people still agreed that Synanon was pretty great overall, seemed to be making a real difference for the addicts that were becoming involved. Most people would be in the program for 2 years, often living full-time in a Synanon house, and they wouldn't be allowed to leave the program for those 2 years, and then they would graduate and go back out into the world. But in the late 60s, things started to change a little bit. First of all, Diedrich now saw the organization as more of a religion than anything else, and he decided that you don't graduate from a religion, so why are people graduating from Synanon? So people were no longer allowed to graduate. Once you were in Synanon, you were in for life.
Oh.
He also started accepting a lot of people that weren't addicts but wanted to be part of this community, and he called those people lifestylers. They were a lot different than like the normal addict people. They got to have a lot more freedoms, and they were usually the ones that were kind of running things and punishing the addicts and yelling at them and whatnot. There were a lot of different Synanon centers by this point, and Diedrich installed speakers around the centers that would broadcast his speeches pretty much 24/7, and sometimes he would speak to people live through a private radio frequency.
It's not very fun anymore.
It's starting to become less fun, but people are still
I don't like the speaker
really into
24/7 thing at all.
Yeah. He also started training some of the members in martial arts and basic military training.
Oh, I'm back.
Yeah. You hear martial arts and you're in. He created a Synanon fighting force called the Imperial Marines. They were tasked with protecting Synanon from outsiders, but at least in the beginning, it kind of seemed like they didn't have much to do. He did spend like $300,000 on guns. Jeff, you're a gun guy. You would love to see
I mean,
that.
if I know martial arts, I probably wouldn't need the gun, to be honest with you.
Yeah, your hands are weapons then.
If they have guns, I'll just take the gun from them.
Yeah. I think they called their specific type of martial arts like Sindo or something. It was pretty silly. I know.
That's so cool. Did they have a boat? Why were they Marines? Do you know?
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, are Marines like our Marines? Are they associated with the water?
They're a naval. Yeah. It's like,
What?
yeah.
The name Marine, Wes.
I know, but I thought Marine was like, I thought the Marines were a whole different thing than the Navy.
I mean, they're a different branch in the Navy, but they're like I don't know exactly how it works, but they're associated closely with the Navy.
They'll like snorkel into the zone if they have
do.
to.
Love snorkeling, don't they?
You think they'll snorkel into like war zones?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Frogmen.
I don't know, man.
Isn't that what they call them?
Thought that was French people.
No, dude. They love being called frogmen when they're snorkeling around in their little black jumpsuits. They're so cute. All right. In the 70s, even though Synanon didn't have the correct licenses or permits for group care, judges and probation officers started to assign at-risk youth to Synanon centers against their will. Yeah. This is Synanon is often seen as the start of the troubled teen industry, like what Brent went to, our cousin Brent, and all these different people get sent to. This is kind of the pattern for all of those places.
Wow.
Because kids would get sent there and there was no oversight over anything. They would be put through boot camp-like training, and they would be almost consistently physically abused by Synanon leaders.
They had to dig holes as deep as their shovels, like long-wise and width-wise.
And there's
every
venomous
single
lizards
day.
everywhere. Yeah. No, but they would like get the shit kicked out of them all the time. Like really intense physical abuse. It wasn't this like happy-go-lucky place for them. It was really intense. And there was even like kind of an underground railroad to get people out of these Synanon centers, kids. And when they would
like
escape,
that one Elon Musk is trying to build.
No, it's not like Hyperloop or whatever.
Oh,
Bullshit
imagine
is.
how fast you could get them out with the Hyperloop, though.
Probably not that fast.
Yeah.
Just one at
They'd
a
still
time.
be there, yeah.
You know, high-speed rail exists, people. We don't need to take people in Teslas one at a time.
Nah, Hyperloop sounds cooler.
So these kids would escape and they'd report this abuse to adults, but it often fell on deaf ears because they were already these kids that people saw as like delinquent. So anyway, Diedrich started charging members a lot of money each month to be part of the group. And when the IRS started looking into Synanon in 1974, he was able to officially change the designation of the group to a religion, which meant he could escape paying
No
taxes to the
taxes.
government. Yeah.
Oh, that's sick. We got to do that with Tooth
I
and
know.
Yeah, should we be coming up
Tooth
a
and Claw.
religion?
Yeah.
Tooth and Colt, dude. Tooth and
Yeah.
Colt.
Cool.
The organization was now making roughly $8 million a year, and they owned over $20 million in real estate, including some sprawling compounds that Diedrich kind of saw as the future of the organization. So it was during this time, in the 70s, that Synanon really started swinging from a quirky community of addicts that found peace in brutal honesty to a paranoid and hostile cult that saw Diedrich as their savior. And some big changes started happening. One of those changes was that members were no longer allowed to have children because Diedrich thought the world was overpopulated. My guess is that he was probably just like annoyed by some of their kids and was like, too many kids. You guys can't have them anymore.
I don't know. He's kind of right. The world was overpopulated back then.
This wasn't a hard rule, meaning you wouldn't necessarily get kicked out of Synanon for having a kid, but there were definitely more than a few women in the organization that were coerced into having abortions. But surprisingly, the onus for making sure this reproductive control happened ultimately fell on the men. And that's surprising because usually when you're talking about reproductive control in any kind of situation, it's placed on women's shoulders, but Synanon really put that on the men. By 1977, all men over the age of 18 that had been in Synanon for over 5 years were required to have a vasectomy, and vasectomies were often performed collectively in what Synanon called clipping parties. Should we do
Wow.
one of those after this? Should we have a little clipping party? The three of us? No?
No,
All
I
right.
want to, just in case things change, I want to reserve
enough.
the right to sire a
I
child.
guess I'll have a solo clipping party then. For some of the men in the group, this was a step too far. One of those men was Phil Ritter. He did not want to be forced to get a vasectomy. This was like not the cult that he had signed up for. And he went and talked to the police about what was happening at Synanon. Somehow, a Synanon lawyer got word of him snitching, and they wouldn't let him back into Synanon housing where his wife and his daughter were living. Around the same time, Diedrich's wife, Betty, passed away from lung cancer at the age of 55. And the cult really went off the rails when she died. One of the first things that happened was that Chuck pretty much held a tryout for his new wife. He picked a 31-year-old out of the 6 finalists, and he was 64 years old at the time. Not long after, he said that marriage...
That's not that. I mean, Leo would have gone younger.
I think it was wrong, especially because there's a total
Power imbalance.
A power imbalance
Dynamic.
between these two.
I don't know
Power
that. I'd
dynamic.
want to see how she won the spot before I make any
Yeah.
judgment.
Fair
If
enough.
she just blew him away in the sack race competition,
Blew
it's
him
like, how
away
do you
is
choose someone else?
Interesting word.
She ran like a 4.340 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a
She can do
31-year-old
the
is an
longest
adult.
handstand.
So yeah, there's worse examples, but it does feel a little icky that that's who he decided on. Anyway, I do think they stayed together for the rest of his life.
Well, there you go, dude.
Tooth and Claw is brought to you by Hims. Men, if ED is getting you down, you need Hims to help you get your confidence and other things back up. Hims provides access to treatments that can help you stay hard and last longer, so you can be ready whenever the mood strikes. And that's important because sometimes, you gotta be ready at all times.
ready.
You never know
know.
what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
I've been watching clips online. Sometimes it's pizza men. You never know what's gonna happen.
Jeff, we've tried to tell you over and over again. Those clips aren't real.
Yeah, it's crazy. Plumbers, you never know. For men, dealing with ED can be uncomfortable, which is why Hims provides access to a comfortable solution with an all-online process and personalized treatment options. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. Process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor visits. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. With hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, Hims can help you find the ED option that works for you. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/tooth. That's HIMS.com/tooth for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/tooth. The featured products include compounded products which are not approved or verified for safety, effectiveness, or quality by the FDA. Prescription required. See website for details, restrictions, and important safety information. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
But a crazy thing was not long after he got married, he said that marriage should no longer be permanent and that married couples should all be divorced and start forming 3-year love contracts with people within Synanon rather than lifetime marriages. The next day, hundreds of couples filed for divorce. One of those people was Phil Ritter's wife. So Phil Ritter was the one that was kicked out of Synanon.
Oh, shit.
He wasn't allowed to see her
Phil
or
Ritter's
his daughter.
getting owned.
He is getting owned by this cult. Ultimately, he filed a legal motion to be
Should
able
have
to
just
see
gotten
her
that
more.
vasectomy. It's not
He
that.
already
I
had a
mean,
daughter.
Seriously.
He's like, wait, 3-year love contracts? I want back in. So he filed a legal motion to be able to see her more. And it turns out that legal action was really the thing that Chuck Diedrich hated the most and was afraid of. So not long after filing this motion, Phil Ritter was walking home one day when 2 men with shaved heads and wooden mallets approached him in the street. They beat him without saying a single word and left him bleeding in the street with a fractured skull. This would be just one of 18 attacks that would be linked to Synanon and the Imperial Marines.
Damn.
Synanon's now making a lot of money through members themselves who would pay monthly dues, sometimes up to $1,000 a month in the 70s, which was a lot of money. So they were really focused on recruiting or receiving new members by whatever means necessary. Ed Wynn was in over his head. His wife Frances had been having psychotic episodes, and he was simply not qualified to handle them, as they'd been getting progressively worse. In June of 1977, he could tell she was on the verge of another breakdown, and he had made plans to take her to a treatment center after he got home from work. In the meantime, he told her to go to a clinic in Venice Beach for a tranquilizer to tide her over until they went to the treatment center that afternoon. But when Ed got home from work, Frances was gone. She'd gone to the clinic, and while she was there, a nurse had recommended she try Synanon for treatment and had pointed her in the direction of a nearby Synanon center. When she arrived at the center in a nearly psychotic state, the Synanon people took her in, immediately shaved her head, and started breaking her down through repeated sessions of the game. They locked her in a Synanon apartment, and she had no control over when she was allowed to leave.
Whoa.
Ed figured out what had happened. He went to the center and demanded her release, and he was told that he was not allowed to see his wife and that she did not want to see him. The next day, she was put on a bus and transferred to another Synanon facility north of San Francisco. So they pretty much just kidnapped this woman.
Yeah. So she had no link to this organization at all before showing up that day.
She just showed up for treatment, and they shaved her head and threw her in prison, essentially, and broke her down verbally.
Yeah. That's probably illegal, right?
Yes, this is illegal.
That's one of those things where,
okay. Kind of. We're going to get into that.
Wow. I'm really interested to hear how that might not be illegal.
It's right now, actually. So Ed figured out what had happened. He went to the center. He demanded a release, this new center, and they again said no. So he talked to the police, and he was told there was nothing they could do because she was an adult that had willingly checked herself into the shelter. So even though it's she's psychotic, the police are just nah, she's an adult woman. She can do whatever she wants, which I wonder how that would hold up in court these days.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like you need to talk to her to be like, do you want to be there? Type of thing,
Right. And at this point, she probably doesn't want to be there.
Right.
But they had told her that her husband had shown up and said that he wanted nothing to do with her anymore and that she should start paperwork for a divorce.
Oh.
And
sneaky.
Ed had traveled there, and he's again told that he can't see her and that she wants nothing to do with him. So he's desperate. He starts reaching out to anyone that might be able to help him, including politicians and lawyers. And one of those lawyers happened to be Paul Morantz, and he was exactly the right person for Ed to find. Morantz had built a career helping people that had been coerced and controlled against their will, and when he heard Ed and Frances's story, he immediately knew that he had found a new purpose, and that purpose was taking down Synanon. He calmly told Ed on the phone, "I'll get her back. I promise I'll get her back." Morantz did a tiny bit of research into Synanon and quickly realized that they didn't have any of the licenses, permits, or oversight required of a treatment care center, and he knew that he had to act fast to get Frances out. What he didn't know was that Frances had already entered into full-blown psychosis at this point, and Synanon was actually pretty ready to get rid of her as well. So they arranged for her release conditional on Ed and Frances signing a waiver of liability for Synanon. So essentially they said, we'll let her out. She can go back to Ed, but you guys have to say this wasn't our fault. And Morantz was a really sneaky lawyer, as they tend to be. They're sneaks. But in a good way this time. He managed to write up a contract that left a loophole for the Winds to be able to prosecute Synanon. So when Frances was released, they almost immediately launched their suit, and they won. Synanon had to pay this couple $300,000 in damages. This is 1977. That's big money. For Chuck Diedrich, the public embarrassment was much worse than the payout, and Paul Morantz immediately became enemy number one for Synanon.
Those guys with the sticks are going to get him, maybe.
Yeah, those skinheads with mallets. Diedrich would rant and rave to his Imperial Marines about how Morantz was going to end Synanon and he needed to go. A lot of those rants would actually be recorded and would serve as valuable evidence in future court cases against Synanon. In one of them, he was recorded saying, and you guys are going to love this. This is what he said. It's scary. "Don't mess with us. You can get killed dead. Physically dead."
Whoa.
Pretty intense.
That is.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, at least it's not like a spiritual death, because that's like the
true.
ultimate kind of.
It's worse.
Yeah.
Kill your spirit. Yeah.
Yeah. He's not to that point yet, but maybe someday.
Emotionally dead, that's probably the best option.
Yeah, we're all there already, you know? And when it seemed like Paul Morance might be contacting other disgruntled members of Synanon to represent them in legal battles, Diedrich launched into action. He had 2 Imperial Marines that he trusted with this task of eliminating Morance. One was 20-year-old Lance Kenton, son of a famous jazz musician that had pretty much been raised in Synanon. The other was Joseph Musico, a former addict and Vietnam vet that would boast about wearing a necklace of human ears while he was in the war. So not a great guy, probably. So first, Diedrich told them to look into hiring an assassin to kill Morance, but this high price tag of getting an assassin, which was like 10 grand, I think is what they found, was too much for Diedrich. He didn't want to pay that much. So he assigned the assassination to these 2 men, Lance Kenton and Joseph Musico.
I feel like if
Go ahead.
we're on the same
Yeah.
wavelength, I think.
I want
Like,
you to do it then.
if you're making that much money, you got 10,000 is not even a lot for an assassin.
No.
That's something
think
you
he was a
want a
little
good
cheap.
person for.
Yeah. You want to
know, like-
overpay.
Yeah, there's
Get
like
what you
things
pay
you can
for.
skimp out on a bit. Assassins,
Yeah.
I would recommend getting a pretty quality.
Yeah.
Going for
Like-
spending all the money.
You see in the Star Wars prequels what a bad assassin, like it just doesn't work. They
Yeah,
do
you
a bad
don't-
job and they end up killing the
They
Emperor.
probably
eventually.
would like talk about it afterwards and brag about it. The bad
Right.
assassin would. Good assassin, you never hear from him again.
Nope.
Chucking some worms into their room. They're going to kill him.
Yeah.
Never trust worms to do an assassin's job. That's what I
That's-
was always told.
That's rule
Growing
number
up.
1 as an assassin.
Yeah. Anyway, I think he just kind of saw them as free labor and probably didn't value their lives very much. So he just said, why don't you 2 handle this? They had some time to discuss ways they might be able to kill Morance without implicating themselves, and ways that would also send a strong message to Synanon enemies. And during that discussion, Lance told Joseph that he was good with snakes. You guys know I love my cat. Me and Toad, we're bros. I love watching a movie late at night. He comes and lays on my chest and just purrs into my ear. He's just a wonderful ray of sunshine in my life. I love him. So for me, it's really important that he gets the best quality food possible, because I know that's going to extend his life. It's going to make him happier too. Pets don't deserve just to eat like processed cardboard kibble all the time. They deserve really good food. And for me, that food is Smalls. Smalls cat food is protein-packed recipes made with preservative-free ingredients that you would find in your fridge, and it's delivered right to your door. Cats.com actually named Smalls their best overall cat food, which is pretty impressive. That's Cats.com that we're talking about here, guys.
Yeah, so
This is-
cats
I mean-
themselves have made
Yeah.
their voice heard.
They have. Toad has definitely made his voice heard. He loves Smalls. They sent us a package of a bunch of their different varieties of cat food, and he really likes them all. And they even gave us this cool little, it almost looks like a chalice that he can eat out of. So, you know, he's our little king that's eating out of his little chalice.
I want a
which is
chalice
amazing.
to eat out of.
Yeah.
That's cool. I'll order some.
The thing for me that's so important is they have fresh protein-packed meals. After switching to Smalls, 88% of cat owners reported overall health improvements, which is a big deal. And they're so confident that your cat will love their product that you can try it risk-free. It means they'll refund you if your cat won't eat their food. Since making the switch to Smalls, I do feel like Toad has been happier. He's been more excited to eat his meals. He has more balanced energy, and just kind of seems like his litter box is a little less stinky too, which is always a big plus.
Whoa. Nice
Yeah.
job, Toad.
For a limited time only, because you are a Tooth and Claw listener, you can get 35% off Smalls plus an additional 50% off your first order by using our code TOOTH. That's an additional 50% off when you head to smalls.com and use promo code TOOTH. Again, that's promo code TOOTH for an additional 50% off your first order plus free shipping at smalls.com. All right, back to Paul Morance.
You can't just like not use snakes then.
Yeah, he's like, okay, so you want to use snakes? Is that what you're saying?
He's like,
He's like, no. That's not what I'm saying, but
I mean, we could use a
but
gun.
if we
but
wanted to.
I am good with snakes.
It is like the Star Wars assassin then. Kinda.
It is. It's
All
very
right.
similar. All right. Back to Paul Morance. He's in his house settling in to watch Game 1 of the World Series. Yankees versus Dodgers.
The
one for
Dodgers.
ages.
Oh my gosh.
He knew how dangerous Chuck Diedrich was. He knew that there was probably people planning to kill him, But he also needed to maintain his sanity, and for once he was just going to relax, watch some baseball, and not think about Synanon. As he walked into his living room to turn on his TV, Paul could see something in the mailbox. This slit, it was kind of like a mailbox slit on his living room wall. Kind of interesting mailbox. His glasses weren't on, but through the grate of the mailbox, he could see what looked like a large package that he thought might be a scarf or something long in his mailbox. So he reaches his hand in to open it up.
Wait, so like it was the length of a scarf?
It just looked like something in there that was long and a package. So he thought like
be a crazy way to send scarves.
Scarf.
Like not to fold them up at all.
Not wrapped in anything. What it was a 4.5 foot long Southern Pacific rattlesnake that had been stuffed into this mailbox.
Whoa.
It was very stressed out and also injured. The men that had caught it, left it here in the dark, had also removed its rattles with a knife. It was in pure defense mode. Its tail was vibrating silently as Paul Morance opened the mailbox and light fell on the snake's face. Paul had just started to reach into the mailbox when the rattlesnake shot forward and sank its fangs into his hand just below his left thumb. The pain was instant, and he felt as though his hand had been caught in a powerful vice. Pulled his hand back with the snake still attached, and it fell from the mailbox and plopped onto the floor. Paul immediately realized what had happened, and his first thought was, oh no, this isn't how they're going to get me. And then he ran out his back door and started screaming for help. In those screams, he added, it's Synanon. Synanon got me.
It'd be crazy if he didn't realize what had happened immediately.
Yeah.
If he is still just like, where's the scarf?
It's like, I'll just push past this rattlesnake to get my new scarf. His neighbors would call an ambulance. One neighbor would enter his house and cut the head off the snake, which was still coiled up on his living room floor. Another neighbor would put a tourniquet on Morance's arm and wait with him while the paramedics arrived, which you're not supposed to do with rattlesnakes, but, you know, they actually credit this guy with saving him. I don't know if that's true or not. All right, we're going to do some quick biology. It's a longer story today, so we're not going to do a ton, and a lot of this is similar to our other rattlesnake species we've covered, but there are some really cool, unique things about this particular species of rattlesnake. Southern Pacific rattlesnakes look a lot like a traditional rattlesnake, like the rattlesnake you'd picture in your head when someone says rattlesnake. They have a diamond-like pattern down their back, tan or brownish gray coloration that can also sometimes look a little bit green, and they don't have the black and white stripes on their tails like Western diamondbacks do. If you ever see those black and white stripes, you're looking at a diamondback species of rattlesnake. I think. Actually, I shouldn't say that. There might be others that have that. Southern Pacific rattlesnakes are one of the more common species of snake in Southern California, and they're really the only rattlesnake that you'll find right in Los Angeles. There's only one photo of the snake that bit Morance, and I had read somewhere that it was a Western diamondback. I was excited to talk about them because I know how dangerous they can be, but I sent the photo to a snake expert friend of mine, Ian, shout out Ian, and he told me that it was a Southern Pacific rattlesnake, which secretly I had suspected it was because I knew it was in Los Angeles, and I was a little bit disappointed, but then Ian told me that they have a crazy venom cocktail and that it might be the number one snake in the US that he wouldn't want to get bit by, which I thought was interesting. So I had to look into their venom, and it is really interesting. One of the most interesting things about this snake is the way that their venom varies across habitats and elevations that they're found in. So you can take the exact same snake, and if you're in the desert, say Joshua Tree, like it's likely that the snake that Clara Jessup was bit by, who we interviewed, it's likely that it was a Southern Pacific rattlesnake. Like you can find them in Joshua Tree. If you drive a couple hours to Idlewild, California, which is much higher, you're in like 6,000 or 7,000 feet elevation, their venom can be very, very different. So these lower elevation ones often have hemotoxic and myotoxic venom, which is very typical of rattlesnakes. That's the venom that's going to break down red blood cells, attack tissue. It's typical rattlesnake venom. You see the necrosis and stuff, but it's not attacking your nervous system the same way. But then the ones in the higher elevation have neurotoxic venom, which actually disrupts nerve signals to muscles and tends to be much more dangerous. It might not hurt as much, but it's like very dangerous venom.
Yeah, you want your muscles talking to each other, you know?
do. Yeah, you need those nerves talking to muscles. And that's interesting because this is the exact same species of rattlesnake, but depending on the elevation that they live on, their venom can vary greatly. And that's
Yeah.
really fascinating to me. That's not typical in snakes.
Probably like the prey that they hunt.
That's exactly what it is. Good job, Jeff. They think that these higher elevation ones have to kill their prey a little bit quicker because there's often more like escape terrain for them.
Well, and like
So-
moose are high elevation
They're not
animals.
killing moose. Yeah. But they do think it's probably an evolution based on the type of prey that they're killing. Some of the potential symptoms of a bite from a southern Pacific rattlesnake include the following: burning pain at the bite site, skin discoloration, the skin can change blue to black, blistering of the skin, swelling at the bite that slowly grows, bleeding from the wound, sensation of a metallic taste in the mouth, salivation, twitching of the eye and the mouth, tingling sensation.
Salvation? That sounds good.
Salivation. Yeah.
Oh.
You get saved. You also get to go to heaven. if you're bit by
I'd
this
take a
snake.
bite.
I would too.
Free ticket.
Chills and sweating, anxiety, breathing difficulties, nausea and vomiting, abdominal pain, blurred vision, death of tissue or necrosis, low blood pressure,
Physical death
tachycardia.
of tissue or
Physical death, not emotional death or spiritual death.
yeah, that's bad.
Feeling faint or dizzy, weakness and malaise, bleeding disorder, blood in urine, bleeding from recent wounds, mucosal bleeding, anemia, acute kidney injury or kidney failure, and intense neurological symptoms. So pretty bad. There's a lot, like pretty much everything that can happen to you
Yeah.
can happen with this rattlesnake bite.
Having a cute little kidney injury doesn't sound too bad. Just like a nice little cute one.
A cute Tacoma.
A cute.
Tiny bit more biology here. Southern Pacific rattlesnakes don't have a huge range, or they're only found in Southern California and northern Baja, Mexico, but it's really impressive how much variation there is in that small range. Aside from the venom variation that we just talked about, there's some really interesting behavioral variations. For example, the Southern Pacific rattlesnakes on Catalina Island attempted to bite people 5 times more than their mainland counterparts in a study, and they delivered more than 2 times the venom on those bites. So just these ones on the island, for whatever reason, are much more aggressive and deliver a lot more venom. And it's really interesting to see that kind of variation among individuals of a species of rattlesnake. And it makes sense to me now why it would be a really scary one to get bitten by, because you really don't know what kind of symptoms you're going to have, how much venom was injected, and that makes treatment really difficult too. Some of the anti-venoms on the market that are used for the hemotoxic variety won't work very well on the neurotoxic ones. So it's kind of a Russian roulette kind of snake. You need to know like what type of Southern Pacific rattlesnake you were bitten by, which is kind of crazy.
That is interesting.
A quick aside here too. In the past, I've really vacillated between saying like anti-venom, anti-venene. I've recently learned that there's multiple accepted ways to say that. I like anti-venom the most, so we're just going to stick to that from here on out.
Great.
Okay. At least I am. I don't care what you guys do.
Dude,
But-
you sounded like such a dork when you were doing the
Anti-venene.
anti-venene.
I know, I hated saying
stage.
it that way.
Venene.
I wish you guys would have used the game on me at that point and told me how stupid I was being. All right. So a neighbor had...
I
oh,
tried, dude. You were like, no, you say it that way.
I'm such a dick. Man, this is working.
Classic
I feel-
Wes.
Yeah. I feel an emotional release. I should join Synanon. Morance would spend 6 days in the hospital in an intensive care unit. During that time, there was
Wow.
a media firestorm about the attempted assassination and the dangerous Synanon cult. This is when the messaging around Synanon really started to change. It was the biggest error that Diedrich would ever make, and it would ultimately lead to the downfall of Synanon. A neighbor had seen the van stop at Morance's house and had gotten a plate number. It didn't take the police very long to connect the plate to Synanon and to Lance Kenton and Joseph Musico. Both men were arrested and placed into custody, and about a month later, Diedrich was also arrested. When police arrived at his residence, he was so drunk that he couldn't talk, which is kind of ironic, based on like this whole thing was based around him getting rid of his alcoholism.
Yeah.
In the ensuing court cases, Morance ended up taking pity on all 3 of these men. Both Kenton and Musico pled no contest to attempted murder and received 1-year jail sentences with 3 years probation. Morance knew the amount of brainwashing they'd both endured, and he felt as though a lifetime in prison wouldn't be fair. Diedrich was in really poor health, and Morance again didn't feel like prison was the best option for Diedrich, so they offered him a deal. He pled no contest to conspiracy
he has to go to his own camp.
Yeah,
as
the game.
like an attendee.
Just get the game nonstop. No, he pled no contest to conspiracy to commit murder. He got 5 years probation and a $5,000 fine. But the biggest part of this deal was that Diedrich was no longer allowed to associate with Synanon for the rest of his life. So he got it pretty easy, honestly.
What did the snake get?
The snake got death, unfortunately. The snake was
that's right.
a real victim.
Had the snake lived, how many years do you think that snake would get?
I think the snake would have been let off, but the snake probably would have died without its rattle.
It'd be
I don't know.
insane if the guy was like, yeah, go easy on those 3, but that snake, he's got to pay.
Put him away for life.
Yeah, in the 70s, that might have happened. Or the 80s, I guess, is when this was all happening now.
Tough for whoever has to be the cellmate, though, of that snake.
To that snake.
I wouldn't mind that.
You'd get bit, dude?
You're terrified of rattlesnakes.
Oh, yeah.
I'm terrified of a cellmate.
Yeah, that's
You'd rather just have a regular cellmate than a snake?
Just put it in
I'd
a corner.
rather have a snake than a regular cellmate.
Oh, no way, dude. Are you kidding me?
Mike, you'd have to talk to your cellmate all the time. You'd hate it.
I would get bit by the snake and die. Well, maybe that is a better alternative. Let me think about it.
I don't know. Sometimes jail seems kind of nice. You can just like sit and read and watch TV.
Yeah.
Work out.
I've been really thinking about committing some crimes over in Sweden. They sound their prison system sounds pretty sick.
Oh yeah.
It's better than life.
That's
here.
that's my like backup plan to Tooth and Claw.
Yeah.
Crime in Sweden. I like it. The cult quickly fell apart without Diedrich at the helm. They lost their tax-exempt status in 1982 and were required to pay $17 million in back taxes, which meant financial ruin for Synanon. Today, all of the chapters in the U.S. have been long closed, but there apparently still is a functioning Synanon center in Germany. Those Germans, they just can't. They can't give up anything, can they?
Yeah, there are a few things they've left by the wayside.
Nope, there's not.
I think we
like,
should.
I like the shaving heads part.
Yeah. I think we ought to reboot Synanon over here in the U.S. It sounded like it started off pretty well.
Yeah.
Bring it back, We're always
Yeah,
rebooting old properties.
I will say I think you can really judge these things by what they birthed. And it seems like Synanon did help start rehab centers. Like it was like one of the first rehab centers and some good came out of it from that. But also this terrible troubled teen industry also was like birthed from Synanon, which has just been so destructive to so many people. So I don't know. Well, you guys just heard me talk about how much I love my cat, and you know that I love my dog too. I sure love Polly. We lost Bryce last year, and getting a new dog has just really reinvigorated both me and Jessie. She's such a joy to be around, and we want her to live as long as possible. And for me, a big part of that is making sure that we're feeding her the best food possible. Healthier food means a happier pup, more energy, shinier coats, better poops, and more excitement at mealtime. And that's why I really like Ollie. Ollie has fresh nutrition and 5 drool-worthy flavors. Even the pickiest dogs like Ollie, it's made in U.S. kitchens with the highest quality human-grade ingredients. Contains no fillers, no preservatives, just real food. And they have some great recipes, guys. Fresh beef with sweet potatoes. I'd eat that right now.
Whoa.
Fresh turkey with blueberries. Never had that combo myself, but it sounds great. What do you guys think? Jeff? Turkey and blueberries?
As a dog, I'd eat it.
Oh, yeah.
Sounds like I know what I'm eating for Thanksgiving this year.
Yep, you guys are getting some turkey and blueberries Ollies.
Thanks, Ollie.
It's really easy to sign up.
But that's got to be super expensive.
It's not. You just sign up, you introduce them to your pup, you fill out their 30-second quiz, you get a welcome kit with 2 weeks worth of meals, and you can customize your plan. They offer different meal plans to choose from, and you can really target it toward your specific dog. It's the only fresh dog food that comes with unlimited routine health screenings, so you can get your pup's health on track to living their healthiest, happiest life. Jeff, you said it might be expensive, but it's not, especially for our listeners. Head to ollie.com/tooth Tell them all about your dog and use code TOOTH to get 60% off your welcome kit when you subscribe today. Plus, they offer a happiness guarantee on the first box. So if you're not completely satisfied, you'll get your money back. That's OLLIE.com/tooth and enter code TOOTH to get 60% off your first box. All right, so Diedrich died in 1997, a few years short of his 84th birthday. Morance would continue to focus on cults and coercive organizations for the rest of his career. He wrote several books. He did have health problems for the rest of his life, including a blood disease that doctors believed was an artifact from the snake envenomation.
Wow.
In his later years, he would say that he would eventually set the record for dying from the longest murder ever. In October 2022, he proved himself right when he passed away at the age of 77 from existing health conditions that the rattlesnake bite may have played a part in.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, by that logic, the only way you don't prove, quote unquote, is if you never die.
Mike, let's let him have this.
Okay, well, you got it. You got him, right?
No, but not necessarily. Like if he died in a car crash or something.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
or just
very true.
Yeah.
If he was like shot in the face, you couldn't say, hey, I think the rattlesnake finally got him.
Played a part. Could have, maybe.
Could have survived had he not been bit that once.
That's the end of the story, but for me, this one was really interesting because I had never really heard of Synanon. But meanwhile, there had been like movies made about it. There's this whole HBO documentary series. It's like one of the more influential cults that ever existed in the US. It really changed a lot. And there were a lot of people that were heavily affected by this cult. So it's really interesting to me.
Yeah, it was fascinating.
Yeah, no, I didn't really know any of that. So, but it sounds like it was a pretty big deal. That's crazy how bad those assassins were.
They're kind of good in a way, but also like
it worked, but it's also like you gotta know that a rattlesnake isn't necessarily gonna kill someone.
Right. It's a very like low probability tactic, but it almost worked.
But then like to do it when like the neighbors can see your van and like
bad work, real bad work by them.
They were sloppy.
It was kind of surprising to me, and maybe it shouldn't have been. Do you think it's impressive that the snake even bit him at all?
Yeah.
Because that was like, there's no good way to know that the snake's even going to go for it,
I think when you aggravate a rattlesnake to that level, like you stuff it in a mailbox, you cut its tail off, they probably like shook it around in a bag before they put it in. It's much more likely to bite. It's in a very like defensive mindset. But I think more impressive than anything is like thinking that it would actually make contact.
Yeah.
Because you would assume like maybe he would open the mailbox and be like, oh shit, and not get bit by the snake. But the fact that it worked as well as it did, I actually thought was kind of impressive.
Really?
There's a little bit of blame on him for just opening the package when he feels like his life is threatened,
Yeah, for sure.
I just feel like, a gun. They have guns at the compound.
Yeah, $300,000 worth of guns.
Wooden mallets.
Let's get a rattlesnake. I think the thing too that they probably didn't understand is how low probability it is that it actually kills him. We've talked about this before. I think in California every year there's hundreds of people that get bitten by rattlesnakes, and they usually don't have any deaths. Like not that many people die from rattlesnakes. I think it's between 3 and 5 people a year in the entire United States die from rattlesnake envenomation. So it's really not a lot. It's a pretty low percentage. And even in the 70s, it was pretty low because they had already developed some of these antivenoms that worked pretty well. So yeah, if you're going to kill someone, don't use a rattlesnake. Get a black mamba.
How many people in California die from guns every year?
A lot more than rattlesnakes. A lot. So yeah, guns definitely higher probability.
Even like a snake gun just like a gun that shoots the rattlesnakes would be better.
Now we're talking. That's what that guy says. Like, hey, I'm good with snakes.
Yeah. The other guy's like, I'm good with guns. It's like, oh, I got an idea.
Perfect. All right. Well, do you guys have any other questions about Synanon, Southern Pacific rattlesnakes, Paul Morantz, anything before we go to our categories?
How are they doing? Are they doing all right, these snakes?
Yeah, we're going to get to that in conservation, but I can just do it now. Their least concern Their main threats are from habitat loss and just human intervention. People don't like snakes and they'll often kill snakes. So all rattlesnake populations in the US are declining, but this is one that has a pretty healthy population. One thing that's kind of a silver lining for them is that they often do pretty well on the fringes of human society because we tend to attract rodents. We're not good at disposing of our waste, which brings rodents in, and that's what they like to eat. So sometimes we can benefit them in that way, but we're ultimately hurting them by killing them directly and destroying their habitat.
Is losing a rattle a pretty big deal for them? Is it like a death sentence almost, or what?
It's not a death sentence in that their rattle is purely defensive. Like they use their rattle to discourage predators. And for rattlesnakes, their main predators are coyotes, birds of prey, roadrunners will kill them. But they don't have like a ton of natural predators, especially once they're older. So it's not a death sentence.
Mm.
It doesn't affect their ability to get prey or anything.
There's like species, or there's groups of rattlesnakes that have evolved to like lose their rattle or have smaller rattles. And I kind of feel like they're going to move that way with like evolution, just because now that when humans hear the rattle, they like kill rattlesnakes a lot of the time. So I feel like the snakes that rattle less are going to be the ones that produce the most offspring.
You're like Chuck Darwin, dude.
Yeah. That's an interesting concept. It's human-induced evolution, and that does happen. We've talked about it a little bit, like pheasants that fly are being selected against because they're the ones that get shot. So pheasants are starting to run a lot more than they used to. And that could happen with rattlesnakes. You're right, Jeff. It's an interesting thing to think about.
That's by that logic, you think penguins are going to start flying because the ones that don't are the ones that are getting eaten.
I don't think they could change to do that. They probably wish they could. It'd suck to be born a bird and then realize you can't fly.
Yeah, that'd be tough. It's like Elsa in Frozen. Her parents are like, don't use those sweet magic powers. It's bad.
Jeff's dream powers.
Just stay in your room your entire life. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, she makes like one snowball and they lose their minds. All right, let's get on to our categories. They're very cult focused today. I asked you guys your best or favorite cult in pop culture history or real life. You can pick a real cult or a fake cult.
I like in The Office just this line that Creed has where he's talking about cults and he says, you make a lot more money as a leader, but it's a lot more fun as a follower. I just always think of that line when I think of cults.
All right. So your answer is Creed's line from The Office.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going with Los Illuminados from Resident Evil 4. I think it's a pretty cool cult. They're just like zombie parasite people controlled by Sadler, and they play bingo. You know, there's the bingo. Where's everyone going? Bingo. That's the funny line everyone thinks about.
That's definitely my favorite of the Resident Evil games. That's the only one I played start to finish. It's a good one.
It's great.
I picked a real life one. I picked Heaven's Gate. Do you guys remember Heaven's Gate?
Yeah. The Nikes, dude. Sweet.
Yeah. They pretty much believed that there was like extraterrestrial life. And
are they the Kool-Aid ones?
No, we're going to talk about them too. But Heaven's Gate, when the Hale-Bopp comet arrived in the 90s, they all killed themselves thinking that there was a UFO behind the comet, and that when they died, they would like be taken up into that UFO. And they dressed in like the same outfit with the same Nikes, and they all had $5.75 in their pocket. And it was like kind of a joke. It was just a really wonky, interesting, weird cult.
Yeah.
And it was like 30 something people that committed suicide when the comet passed. It was a strange one.
It's crazy. Real crazy. Is that how you pronounce that comet's name? I've always been confused because I always called it Haley-Bop.
I thought it was Hale-Bop, but I'm not sure.
Hale-Bop?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's say you guys start a cult. What are 3 rules you're going to have, and what's your outfit going to be?
So I thought about this a lot, and I've been eating a lot of Mike and Ike's, the Mega Mix box.
Yeah.
But the stupid thing is that I only like one of the flavors out of the 10.
So dumb.
The watermelon, it's so good, and they don't sell it. It doesn't come in any other box. And don't come at me with the sour watermelon box. It's not the same. So the cult is there's only 10 of us. and each of us are devoting ourselves to one of the flavors. Only people named either Mike or Ike can join, or any variation of the
You
name.
can have
So
a
like
lot of mics.
like Miguel or Michaela, like anything close enough, because I
Eisenhower.
don't want to be too exclusionary. Ike, Dwight D. Eisenhower could have joined. So the rules are you have to be either named Mike or Ike. Everyone has to buy 1 box a day, and then we divvy up all the flavors and trade because we're only allowed to eat the one flavor that we like, you know? So I get all the watermelons, everyone gives the watermelons to me, et cetera, et cetera. And then we use the empty cardboard boxes because you can give them back to recycling companies and they'll give you money for them. I think it's like $60 per ton of cardboard, and we're going to be going through a lot of cardboard. So we're going to make a lot of money, and we're going to use that money to like lobby government officials and legislators to, I don't know, various Mike and Ike related causes. And then the bonus rule is if you chew with your mouth open, you immediately are sentenced to death.
I like that. That's a good rule. I'll join your cult.
Great.
You can't.
Yeah. I get watermelon.
No, please.
Your name is Wes.
Oh, that's
shit.
right.
Forgot about that. Change my name to Ike. Jeff, what's your cult?
Yeah, so I kind of took some inspiration from the Davidians,
Branch
the Waco
Davidians.
one. Yeah. Branch Davidians.
Gun guy. You're a gun guy.
To me too, like cults, a lot of being in a cult is about sex, especially as like the cult leader. So if I'm the cult leader, there's a lot of sex motivation. But I liked how he did it, where it's like he has to have sex with every woman in his cult, but he can't enjoy it. If he starts enjoying it, he has to stop. So it's simply just like, you know, I have to do this. It's like it's like an obligation.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, can't enjoy it.
Yeah. You're gonna need that hymns subscription.
We'll have our whole like motto is save the sharks. So then like it's a good thing to care about. And also when people start getting mad at us for having a cult, we can be like, well, we're trying to save sharks, and they'll be like, oh, that is good. You know, that's like a public image type of thing. Like people can't go too hard on us.
Good PR.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we'll watch the Lord of the Rings extended once a week.
Wow. Once a week. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's nothing else to do. And I think we'll dress kind of as furries, but like not the full costume. Like I want to see people still, but then whatever animal you choose to dress as, and you can change it, you have to like have sex as if in the way that animal would have sex.
Okay.
When you do have sex.
So lots of doggy style sex in this cult.
I mean, there's sharks. Mike did the eagle ray where you bite the side. If you dress as an eagle ray, you bite them on the side, you know?
Okay. Can you change animals that you dress up as, or are you locked in?
Praying mantis, like women can choose a praying mantis.
Right.
And just lop the head off afterwards.
I'd like to see them try.
Or eat the head?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They'd get like one bite into my head and I would put a stop to it.
All right. My cult, my rules are everyone has to be completely quiet for 5 hours in the middle of the day. That just sounds nice to me.
Sign me up. I don't care what the rest of the rules are.
We all stockpile Easter candy to eat it year round because it's the best candy. And I just love to be in a cult where that's what you do. And then to be a member, you have to see 10 new animals each year, which is pretty easy, to be honest. Like birds, you can see 10 new birds pretty easily. Our outfit is going to be robes. I think I'm always the most comfortable just in a robe. Every once in a while you get flashed by someone. So
wait, what's the upside of this? Like, what's the goal of the cult for you? Just seeing new birds?
Just having some peace and quiet for 5 hours every day. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's not a big upside.
There's not a whole lot of sinister angles going on there.
I might be the only person in this cult. I'm pretty much doing all these things already, aside from the quiet time. So, all right. Our next one is, which real life cult would you be most likely to join?
Oh, this was real life cult.
You can do a fake one if you want. That's fine.
Well, my fake one was there's always a bad team in the Pokemon games that's like trying to steal Pikachu or whatever. In one of them, I forget which one it was, but their whole idea was to take people's Pokemon and set them back into the wild and like free them, which I think is a pretty good thing instead of just making them fight each other all the time. I think that's probably they were in the right.
Much more ethical.
Yeah.
Pokemon. Yeah. All right.
You go, Wes.
Yeah. I said I was going to mention this one, but Jonestown, the People's Temple, Jim Jones, he incorporated like Christianity, socialism, and communism into the People's Temple, which was that's kind of been my track as I've gone through life. And I like, they were really big on racial equality. They moved to Guyana, which Guyana is a beautiful country. He really loses me when they get to the drinking the purple drink and all committing suicide. But, you know, if I'm feeling it, if I'm feeling the vibes of racial equality and love and everything, maybe I'll drink it.
There's a give and a take, you know?
That one's crazy when you think about it. 900 people like drank the purple drink and died. That's insane.
And not just like
so many people,
like children and stuff. It's
it's
gnarly.
unreal.
I mean,
And they like killed a congressman and stuff.
Yeah.
That one's wild.
he must have been saying some true stuff to get like all of them to do it, you know?
Right.
Yeah. I'm sure
There's
a lot of
always
people,
some truth.
it was against their will, but
You think?
yeah, for
I
sure.
would imagine.
Yeah, 900. Yeah.
To make like a good cult, you gotta make it really hard to leave too. That's what I've learned. If you
Guyana.
leave, it's
Guyana's
like
hard to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just made up my own that was I was very sexually motivated in all of this.
Sure.
So I just had a cult of all women where I'm like the one guy that joins.
Yeah. There's those
But it
cults.
kind of sounds bad actually.
I'm pretty sure Jared Leto started one of those cults.
Yeah. How'd you come up with that?
When
idea, Jeff?
Louis
That's great. That's really inventive.
Yeah, that's a bad one. You know what? An alien cult would be the most fun, I think.
Leaving whole hog and aliens.
Or like the start of Scientology. That's like it's just like the start of some of these religious cults where it's just like every day. Like if you're really committed to it and you're just like, wait, we all watched a movie in a volcano? Learning that would be crazy.
Learning that and still deciding that like, no, this is good still. I still want to be a part of this.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Should we do some listener questions? Or I think we're doing some nice advice would suffice. Is that right, Jeff?
Yeah, I got a few.
Okay. I'm never giving up on that title.
Should never give up. We should rebrand and spin it off into its own show.
Okay. And if you guys have listener stories, are we ever going to do that again?
Yeah.
Tooth
I think
tales?
we're going to do that for our Mother's Day episode this year, too.
All right. Yeah. Write in for advice, general advice, or if you have a good wildlife encounter story to toothandclawmailbag@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is from Jennifer, and it's actually the second part of what she wrote in, but I don't know. I liked it a lot, the thought of it. So, P.S. I just listened to the episode with the snake falling from a hawk and landing on an innocent bystander below. I instantly remember my friend who had an osprey drop a live fish onto their deck one afternoon. It was quite large, and the sound of it landing on the deck drew them outside to find the fish alive and I assume very confused. They ended up eating the fish. I wish I had pictures to send y'all. This occurred on the Chesapeake Eastern Shore in Maryland. So I guess my question, or I guess what it is just like, what would you do if there's just a huge live fish on your deck all of a sudden?
It's definitely not advice. But
we're giving advice right now. I don't know what you want out of this.
I would put it in a bathtub full of water.
Would you?
I think I would, yeah. Until like that's at least step one because we're going to be thinking about where we go from there. I actually think eating it's not that bad because that's like what you're always talking about, like sustainably catching seafood, right, Wes?
Yeah,
I think that's about as sustainable as it gets.
Is that locally caught?
Yeah, locally sourced, caught
Right.
sustainably.
So no issues eating it from there.
Yeah, I'm impressed that they ate it. Like, I think that's admirable because I think for me, that would feel like a tainted fish at that point. I don't think I would want to eat a fish that an osprey dropped on my deck. but it's impressive that they ate it. So no advice from me. I think 10 out of 10.
What do you mean no advice?
Response. I think they did a great job in what they did.
Okay, well, what would you do if one dropped a fish on your deck?
I would probably just hope that it would come down and take its fish again. I'd just
just leave it out for the osprey to...
Yeah.
You'd just let the fish drown?
Yeah, I guess. It wouldn't take long, and I just feel like that osprey deserves its meal that it caught. So I'd probably just let nature take its course.
I don't know if it deserves it. It dropped it at the goal line, you know?
Yeah.
You're so true. Close. You got to keep your talons on that, eye on the prize. We should give advice to the osprey, I think is what this question's about, right?
Be better at catching fish.
Right.
Yeah, hold on to Butterfingers. You got to get some like wide receiver gloves or something if you're that osprey.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I would have ate it, but now that I've heard that story, I might. But like, if it had happened without hearing that, I'd probably kill the fish and then just leave it out there. All right. Next one is from Lauren, an undergrad student studying wildlife ecology at Michigan Technical University. And this one's just kind of advice for Wes to give the state of Michigan.
Okay.
Wildlife. So recently there have been 2 cougar cubs spotted in Ontonagon County in western part of the Upper Peninsula for the first time in over 100 years. There have been cougar sightings before the cubs have been reported, but the DNR reported that they've all been transient males. So like there's never been cubs found in that section over this past 100 years, right? The mother of the cubs has not been found, and it doesn't sound like the cubs have been found since they were spotted in March either. I assume that the mother was probably killed, and the cubs believed to be around 7 to 9 months old. And without their mother, it's not likely that they will survive either. I just want to get your thoughts on this. What do you think it means for cougars in Michigan? Do you think that there should be protections or repopulation efforts for cougars now that there's been confirmed breeding female? Do you think there could possibly be more breeding females in the area?
Right. So I'm supposed to give advice to Michigan?
If you're hell-bent on it being advice, I'm sorry.
I mean, that is the category.
I know, but it's like... just really quick for people
I thought it'd be interesting to hear your input on what this listener wrote in.
I agree. This feels like a listener question to me. And I do think when people write into...
But like the questions are too small on the Instagram, you know?
When people write into the mailbag, though, for advice, it can be something that they need advice from us about. But I'm happy to answer this question for now. I personally think you have to often rally a lot of resources, time, energy, and money to provide new protections for a species that's been extirpated before. And you want to do that when you know that that animal has like established in that area. To me, just seeing 2 cubs, probably I think it would maybe be a little preemptive to put all that effort behind it at that point. But I think it's when you start having those discussions, when you start really thinking about whether or not you need to start a mountain lion program or a cougar program. But the other thing I don't totally agree with is that it's very likely that that mom was still around when they saw these cubs and she just wasn't in view. Sometimes mountain lions will stash their cubs somewhere when they go to hunt and they'll leave them alone for hours at a time. So I don't think it's like a given that she's dead. She might be raising those cubs. And if they do continue to see female mountain lions in that area, then yeah, I think it's a great idea to start a program to protect them.
Thanks for that advice.
You're welcome.
Now Michigan knows what to do.
James asks, this one, their leg is probably healed by now, but we can still give them some advice. I have a broken leg, and I was wondering if there's any good anime or just general TV shows to binge until I get better.
I'll turn it over to you guys first.
Yeah. You know what show a show that I think is really good is You on Netflix.
Really?
Yeah. I think it's like a fun rewatch and a fun binge.
Good? I feel like the first 2 seasons were fun and then it got really bad.
I didn't say got good. I was just saying
Okay.
I think it's a good show.
Yeah.
I feel like they've done well every season. The third one
Oh.
went a little crazy, but I was like, you can't keep doing just, I don't know.
All right. Yeah.
For me, when I'm recovering from something, I want kind of like a low stakes episodic or something I'm really, really familiar with. So I don't have to be like totally locked in if I'm drifting in and out of sleep or whatever. So like the Twilight Zone, just small little vignettes of, you don't really have to be super locked into it. They're always just like fun concepts, but you don't have to like follow a storyline from episode to episode, season to season. So I would recommend something either you're really, really familiar with and know that you like. Yeah, I think the Twilight Zones are really just kind of a fun, almost borderline campy sometimes. Just a nice thing to recover to.
I got 2 recommendations quickly. I've really enjoyed the recent series Common Side Effects. It was created by Mike Judge and the animators behind Scavenger's Reign, which was one of my all-time favorite series. And then I really love Andor. I think Andor might be my favorite Star Wars story ever. So I know season 2 just started. I haven't started it yet, but I recommend both of those very emphatically.
That's a Common Side Effects. Sounds interesting.
I've been telling
Haven't heard of it.
Mike and Jeff to watch that for months, but they're never. I've overdone it. They're not going to do it at this point.
Yeah, we'll never like it as much as you want us to.
You won't. It's true. I need to just. I'm never going to bring it up again to you two, but everyone else I will.
I think you must have like drunk texted me the other night when you were like, "So, it's
I was
maybe time
drunk,
to watch
but-
Side Effects, Common Side Effect." No, it was funny. It's great.
Yeah.
All right, here's one from Elizabeth. Looking for your advice on a family heirloom. My great-grandfather was a furrier.
Mm.
What's that? What's the difference of that and a furry?
A furrier. Hold up.
It's someone that's even more furry than just a regular furry.
Well, I can just tell you. The family still has a real leopard fur coat from his shop that's hanging on my uncle's closet. So it's someone who deals with animal furs.
Mm.
None of us are interested in wearing it, and none of us would ever want to kill a leopard for any reason, especially to make it into a dumb coat. So the question is, what would you do with this item? What would be respectful and ethical?
It's a great question.
Please, yeah.
I think personally, the leopard's already dead. It's a family heirloom. If you want to keep it, I don't think you have to feel bad about keeping it. I don't think, our ideals and ethics and everything have changed over time. And I think if that's something that is important to you or reminds you of your family, that's okay. I don't know if I'd like wear it out on the town, but like to keep it as a family heirloom, I don't think you need to feel any ethical hangups over that. But if you do feel weird about keeping it, you could give it to a museum, or I'm sure there's like a natural history museum somewhere that would take it, or like
You think?
yeah, I do.
Like a
Like-
coat?
The Bean Museum in Utah, they take any kind of old taxidermy that people want to surrender, and they then like license it out to different museums and stuff. And if it doesn't get licensed, it just sits in a warehouse. But someone might want to display it somewhere, even like a fashion museum or something.
Yeah. Maybe you could repurpose it as something else, like take apart the coat aspect and just have like I don't know what you would do with it from there, but I imagine a museum could do something like that as well. But
I don't think
know.
there's anything wrong with keeping it though. I really don't.
Sure.
I think as long as you're not like wearing it and telling people, look how much I love my leopard skin coat, I think it's okay.
Yeah.
I
Just
feel like it's a
having it as
hard one though, because it is like, I don't know. I don't think I'd want to display it or wear it, because like if someone goes into your house and just sees like a leopard skin up
Yeah.
on your wall, it'd
Yeah.
be like every time I would feel obligated to be like, yeah, I didn't kill that and make it into a coat, just so you
For
know.
sure.
You
Yeah.
know? I don't really know what I would do with it. And I feel like
Yeah.
a museum, it's not like that rare to have leopard skin, and people use leopard skin in a lot cooler ways. So I
Mhm.
feel like the museum, unless it's like, here, feel what a leopard would feel like. Maybe a zoo could do that. I don't know.
So
but-
are you saying, like dispose
Just
of it?
burn it.
I'm saying it's a hard one.
Well,
yeah,
give
just
some
give it
advice,
to
dude.
Goodwill.
I think like
Make it
I wouldn't
someone
do
else's
that.
problem.
I think like the main thing that my advice would be is that I don't think they have to feel bad about it, regardless of what they do with it, unless they're like using it in a way
and
that would
that's not what I'm
encourage
saying.
other people to like have fur. But I
Yeah.
think if they want to just keep it, or if they want to put it in a closet or whatever, it doesn't really matter. But
But I'm just trying to hash out, like,
yeah,
what would you do with it?
I would keep it. I would just like have it in a storage closet, and I think it would be an interesting knickknack that I had from my grandpa.
I think I'd do that too. Just have it. I'd
Stored
keep
away.
it, but probably not display it. And then just like, hey, you want to see this leopard coat my grandpa had?
Right. That was a good
Maybe
one,
like if we started a cult, you could like make someone wear it and then shoot them with like a BB gun while they're wearing the leopard coat, and they have to like act like a leopard, you know?
We
Right.
did that with you once, Jeff.
The bison,
With the
right?
buffalo hat. Yeah, the bison hat. Okay. We did conservation already. Least concern. They're doing okay. But all rattlesnake populations are on the decline. Just for people out there, a quick refresher on some safety and how you should treat these animals. These are very important animals to the ecosystems they're found in. They do a lot of rodent control for us. They're amazing animals that are beautiful, that have evolved a defense mechanism that's literally a warning for us. I mean, they tell you to back off before they bite you generally. So they deserve our respect. They deserve our admiration. And if you do encounter a rattlesnake, obviously like give it plenty of space. If you happen to get bit, what are the two things that you need? The first two things you should look for?
Cell phone and keys.
Yes. Call the emergency center closest to you. Tell them you've been bit by a rattlesnake, and then get yourself there as quickly as possible. Anything else you do is window dressing, like
And
putting
pick up the
ice on
snake
it.
and bring it to the people so they can identify.
You should not do that. But if you do have time to take a photo of it, that's also smart so they can identify the species. But really what you want to do is just get to help as soon as possible. You want to get as much anti-venom as you need. Make sure that you advocate for yourself, because sometimes doctors really just don't have a lot of experience with these animals, and you need to make sure that you're telling them what you know about them. So that's basically it. Anything else you hear about how to treat a snake bite is just kind of not that important.
What about how to take down a cult?
A cult, yeah, just be a really intrepid, hardworking lawyer, I guess.
Don't open packages without shaking them first.
That
If you
scarf
see,
might not
like,
be a scarf.
If a package shows up that's like a 12-foot long poster, like it looks kind of like a wrapping paper tube, don't open it.
It might have a snake in it.
Can the rattlesnake like make a noise without its rattle?
Yeah, even just their tail shaking can make a little noise, and they can hiss.
They can
So
hiss?
they definitely can make. Sometimes they like really hiss when they get into their coil position. It's pretty intimidating. I was gonna say one more thing. Oh yeah, so the other thing too, just if you get bit, is to be as calm as possible. So okay, last thing, our claw rating for the Southern Pacific rattlesnake. I'll go first. I'll go quickly. 9 out of 10 for me. I love rattlesnakes. Every time I see a rattlesnake, I get really excited. I think they're incredible animals, and I just never get tired of seeing them in the wild. So 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I'll probably give it a 10 out of 10.
Wow.
Rattlesnakes are a top 5 snake. I don't know exactly what species I'd put in the 10 spot, but like to me, rattlesnakes are pretty similar. I like them all around the same level, you know? And yeah, I just think they're awesome. I think they're cool.
Nice. I think they're cool too.
100, or no, probably like 58 overall.
Okay. Yeah, I'll give them an 8. I didn't really know this specific species of rattlesnake existed till today. I love all snakes. I think they're all cool, rattlesnakes especially, but maybe that'll grow as I grow more familiar with them.
Yeah. If you see a rattlesnake in Los Angeles or San Diego, it's very likely it's this species.
Cool.
Okay.
I saw one
thanks.
in Malibu once, so it's probably
It was
that.
a Southern Pacific.
There you go, dude. Nice. Was it cool?
It's big.
Yeah, 10 out of 10. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone for listening. We appreciate all your questions, all your kind words, everything you guys do to support us. Thanks especially to our subscribers. You truly keep us going, and we love you so much.
Thank you.
It's funny. The one that we saw, it was on like a walk with a girl, and we both saw it, and we both knew there's rattlesnakes. She like lived there and would see them sometimes. And then we saw it, and we like thought like that's probably a rattlesnake, and we had space to go around it. and we were walking around it, and then it like coiled up and rattled, and I jumped so high, and I like already knew what it was, and like that it's just sitting, like it wasn't loud. Like
it's
a huge threat, but once it rattled, it still like scared me so bad.
When they rattle, you know they mean business.
No, it's business time.
All right, see you guys.
Love you guys.
Bye.